The Dark Waters. It was just supposed to be a quiet weekend, the kind where I could escape the noise of the world and find some peace out on the lake. My boat was old, but reliable. I'd been coming to this spot for years, a secluded cove hidden deep in the forest, far away from any towns. The water was calm, the air crisp, and the only sound was the gentle lapping of waves against the hull. Perfect. But that day, something felt off. I cast my line into the murky depths, watching the ripples fade into the stillness. As the sun sank lower, the shadows grew longer, stretching over the water like fingers reaching from the dark. I shrugged it off, thinking it was just my imagination playing tricks. Then I heard it, a splash. It wasn't like any fish I'd ever heard. It wasn't the familiar plop of a trout jumping or a bass thrashing. It was too heavy, too deliberate. I froze, gripping the rod a little tighter. There, at the far edge of the cove, something moved beneath the surface. It wasn't a fish. It was bigger, much bigger. My heart began to race as I tried to convince myself it was just a log or maybe a waterfowl, though I hadn't seen any around lately. But then it happened again, a ripple, much closer this time. And then the unmistakable sound of something moving just under the surface, circling my boat. I could feel my pulse quickening, my breath shallow. I should have left. I knew that. But I stayed, unable to tear my eyes away from the water. The sun dipped lower and the shadows deepened. That's when I noticed it, a dark shape just beneath the surface. Slowly, it moved closer to me. My mind raced with possibilities, each one worse than the last. What kind of animal would be out there this far from shore, especially in the quiet of dusk? Then, the water erupted. Something massive shot up from the depths, splashing cold water across my face. I recoiled, heart hammering in my chest. It wasn't a fish, not even close. A dark, twisted shape with glowing red eyes rose from the water, its massive form stretching upwards like a serpent, its body slick and scaly. I felt paralyzed with fear as it hovered over the boat, its grotesque features casting long, menacing shadows across the deck. I stumbled backward, tripping over my own feet as I scrambled to grab the paddle. My breath was ragged, my mind racing for any logical explanation. This had to be some sort of trick, maybe an elaborate hoax, but the reality was too overwhelming. This wasn't a trick. This was something ancient, something that had no business being here. The creature's massive head tilted, as if studying me, its eyes gleaming in the fading light. Its jaws parted, revealing rows of jagged teeth that seemed far too large to fit in its mouth. A low, rumbling growl echoed from its throat, vibrating the hull of the boat. The water churned violently around me, as if the very lake itself was alive, responding to its presence. I couldn't think. My instincts screamed at me to row, to get out of there, but my hands were shaking too violently to do anything. I glanced around, searching for anything, any sign of safety, but there was nothing. Just the vast, dark expanse of water, stretching out in every direction. Then, the creature moved again. It wasn't quick, but it didn't need to be. With a slow, deliberate motion, its long body coiled beneath the water, its tail thrashing against the surface, sending waves crashing over the sides of my boat. I could hear the creak of the old wood as it strained under the pressure. I don't know how long I sat there, frozen, my eyes locked on that monstrous shape as it circled my boat. Every few seconds I thought it was getting closer, but each time it seemed to retreat, disappearing beneath the water before reappearing again. The air grew thick with tension. I could almost hear the creature's thoughts, like some primal warning, urging me to leave before it decided to take me with it. But I couldn't move. I was paralyzed by a terror I had never known before. I could feel my heart beating in my throat, the fear rising in my chest like bile. And then, just as suddenly as it had appeared, the creature dove back into the depths, its massive body silently beneath the surface. For a long moment, there was only silence, the kind that presses in on you, thick and suffocating. I didn't dare move, didn't dare make a sound. When I finally managed to tear my gaze away from the water, the shadows had deepened further. The boat was rocking gently, the only movement coming from the occasional ripple in the water. I glanced around, half expecting the creature to burst from the depths at any moment. I didn't stay long after that. I rowed back to shore as quickly as I could, my muscles burning, my mind still reeling from the encounter. The moment I reached land, I didn't hesitate. I tied the boat off, grabbed my gear, and fled into the forest. I didn't stop running until I reached my car, every instinct scream. The fisherman's last catch. It was supposed to be an easy trip, just me, my boat, and the open water. I'd been fishing for years, and this lake was my sanctuary, a place where I could escape everything, even myself. The locals talked about strange things happening out there, but I always thought it was just superstition. There was nothing to fear in the water. At least, that's what I believed. The day started like any other. The sky was clear, the air crisp with the hint of autumn, and the water smooth like glass. I'd set out early, before the world had fully woken up, seeking solitude in the quiet. My boat was small, just a little rowboat, but it was all I needed. I cast my line, letting it sink into the depths of the lake. The only sound, the occasional ripple and the hum of distant birds. But then, around mid-morning, something strange happened. I felt a tug, stronger than usual. I've caught some big fish in this lake, but this felt different. The line jerked hard, and I had to dig my heels into the boat's edge to keep from being pulled in. I gritted my teeth and started reeling it in, but whatever was on the other end of the line wasn't ready to come up. It was pulling, thrashing beneath the surface. My heart pounded as the boat rocked with each tug. Then it happened. The line snapped. The rod was yanked from my hands, and I was left staring at the empty water, the ripples slowly fading. But there was something else, something darker, just below the surface. I squinted, trying to see, but the water was too murky. It wasn't a fish, it was something else. My gut twisted in fear, but I tried to shake it off. Maybe it was just a log or some debris. Still, I couldn't help the creeping sense of unease that had settled in my chest. I wasn't alone. The wind picked up, a chill cutting through the air. My mind raced, but I couldn't bring myself to leave. Something was calling me to stay. Then it surfaced. A dark shape, massive and twisting, emerged from the water like some ancient creature, its scales glistening in the dim light. Its eyes, oh God, those eyes, were bright and unnatural, glowing with an eerie, blood-red hue. I froze, my body refusing to move as I stared at it in horror. It wasn't just a fish. It was something older, something that belonged to the dark, forgotten depths. And it was hungry. The creature's head rose from the water, its long, sinuous body stretching toward the boat. My heart raced as it opened its maw, revealing rows of sharp, jagged teeth, too many to count. It let out a low growl that rumbled through my chest, vibrating the air around me. I grabbed the paddle, desperately trying to push the boat away, but it didn't matter. The water churned violently as the creature began circling, each pass bringing it closer. I could see the glint of its scales, the horrific size of it, a silhouette against the darkening sky. In a final, desperate bid, I lunged for the motor to start the boat. But before I could reach it, the creature lashed out. Its tail slammed against the side of the boat, throwing me off balance. The boat tipped dangerously, and I was thrown into the cold, black water. The chill of the lake seeped into my bones as I splashed around, my limbs numb with fear. I tried to swim, to fight my way to the surface, but I felt something brushing against me beneath the water. A sharp, burning pain shot through my leg as something massive latched onto it. I screamed, my voice lost in the vastness of the lake. Just as I thought it would pull me under, I managed to break free, using every ounce of strength to claw my way back to the boat. My breath was ragged, my chest heaving, and I could feel the blood dripping down my leg, mixing with the dark water around me. I didn't care. I needed to get out. I didn't look back as I scrambled back into the boat, the motor roaring to life, sending me speeding across the water. I didn't stop until I reached the shore. I made it back that day. Barely. But I didn't return to that lake after. I couldn't. There are things beneath the surface that are best left undisturbed. And as I sit here now, far away from that cursed water, I still hear the sound of that creature's growl in the back of my mind, a constant reminder that some catches aren't worth reeling in, and some lakes should never be fished. The last cast. Fishing has always been my escape. There's something about the quiet, the rhythm of casting and reeling that makes the rest of the world fade away. That's why, when my buddy Sam bailed on our weekend trip, I decided to go alone. I had my old rowboat, my gear, and a full cooler. What more did I need? The lake I picked was way off the beaten path, deep in the woods, surrounded by nothing but towering pines and dead silence. It wasn't on any tourist maps, just an old spot my grandfather had told me about before he passed. He used to warn me never to fish there at night. Said the water was wrong. I should have listened. The first few hours were peaceful. The sun was warm, the air crisp, and the lake was like glass. I caught a few bass, nothing special, but enough to keep me entertained. I was about to pack it in when I felt a bite, something strong. I grinned, gripping the rod tight. "You're a big one," I muttered, reeling hard. The thing on the other end fought like hell, yanking my line with unnatural strength. My arms burned as I struggled, my reel screaming under the tension. My boat rocked violently, water sloshing over the sides. My heart pounded. Then the line went slack. For a second, I just sat there, breathing hard, staring at the motionless water. I swore under my breath and started reeling in the empty line, when something massive moved beneath my boat. Not a fish, not even close. A shadow darker than the water itself drifted just under the surface. It was huge, long, sinuous, like a snake, but impossibly thick. My stomach clenched. I couldn't see any details, just the shape. I grabbed my paddle, ready to get the hell out of there, but before I could move, my boat jolted hard. Something hit it from underneath, lifting the bow into the air. I slammed backward, hitting the wooden bench so hard my vision blurred. Then the air filled with the sound of water rushing, gurgling like something was rising. I turned, my breath catching in my throat. It came up slowly, like it wanted me to see it. A gaping black maw, dripping with thick, viscous water. Teeth, too many to count, jagged and uneven, some broken, others razor-sharp, lined its cavernous mouth. Its skin was like rotting leather, slick and covered in patches of something that looked disturbingly like human hair. And its eyes, sunken, empty sockets, stared at me, yet I could feel them watching, studying. My body locked up. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Then the thing let out a low, guttural sound, half a growl, half a laugh. The boat tipped as it moved closer. I snapped out of my trance and grabbed the paddle, shoving the water in frantic strokes. The creature didn't lunge, didn't attack. It just watched. I didn't care. I paddled harder than I ever had in my life. By the time I reached the shore, my hands were blistered, my arms numb. I half ran, half stumbled to my truck, tossing my gear inside without a second glance. As I sped down the dirt road, I forced myself to look in the rearview mirror. The lake was still, peaceful, like nothing had ever happened. But I know what I saw, and I'll never go back.